A major shakeup is underway in Phoenix. The Suns move on from Mike Budenholzer. What does it mean for Kevin Durant and Devin Booker's future? Plus, Matt and Haize will hand out some NBA awards before we dive fully into our postseason analysis. That's all today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets, and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And with me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior writer for the Action Network. He's our Man of 1,000 podcast. It's Matt Moore. And from the Locked On Bulls podcast, the Prince of Petty, it's Haize. Matt, Haize, we're going to dispense with the pleasantries because we have breaking news from ESPN's Shams Charania reporting just before we went to tape here at around 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time that the Phoenix Suns have fired head coach Mike Budenholzer and will work with Kevin Durant's representation on a trade this summer. It's the third straight season the Suns have fired their head coach. The Suns released the following statement, quote, "Competing at the highest level remains our goal, and we failed to meet expectations this season. Our fans deserve better. Change is needed," unquote. Matt, what went wrong this time?
The same thing goes wrong every time. The culture's broken. The culture's broken. You do not fire 3 head coaches in 3 years if the culture is not broken, especially well-respected championship head coaches. Mike Budenholzer racks out 50 wins every year. Won a championship with Milwaukee. Frank Vogel racks out 50 years with a good team every year. Won a championship with the Lakers. Monty Williams racked out 50 wins every year. I don't understand how you can possibly get to the situation and be like, you know what the problem is? The problem's the coach. That's got to be like, this is to me a complete failure by culture setting, roster, etc. There's a lot of conversation from Suns fans about how bad the situation was with Budenholzer in terms of how he treated the media. You know what and how he looked like he was just waiting to be fired. You know what? When that happens is when a coach knows he can't reach a locker room because they don't have any sort of sense of professionalism. Like, I'm sorry, this is on the players. And if they didn't buy in, then I don't blame Bud for that. Because Budenholzer has shown time and time again he can win. And after last year's disaster, you would have thought that they would have bought in. But no, Haize, we're going to blame the coach and just wind up paying another guy for another 5 years to not work for us. What a dumpster fire.
The Phoenix Suns are a cautionary tale of how everything can go wrong. Misvaluing your assets, paying too much money, going in on the team way too early, going into the second tax apron, and not getting the right coach and not supporting coaches when you bring in coaches with letting them have time to figure stuff out. Like the Suns must think that they're a pour water on it and boom, we're a championship contending team. I don't know how they think that, because the way that you go through coaches, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you have to change the roster. You do have to change the culture. The Suns have so much that's going on wrong. Coach Bud wasn't the problem there. Maybe he was part of the problem, but if it was part of the problem, it's because it's systemic. It's down to the root of who that team, who that franchise is, and they don't really want to answer the tough questions. This is a team that really needs to be looking to completely reset the deck. And when you hear things like, oh, we're opening to re-signing Kevin Durant, oh, we don't want to have to trade Devin Booker, you have to continue to question, is this team ever going to get it right? Because they just keep making the wrong decisions at every step along the way.
How did we get rid of Robert Sarver and still wind up here? Like, how is the jump not significantly better from a basketball op standpoint? Obviously better human, but good God, Doug, this is so awful.
I know a lot of fans of other franchises that really want their owners or ownership groups to open up the checkbook and do whatever it takes. And this seems to be a rare case of where doing whatever it takes goes completely wrong, to Haize's point. 49 wins last season. That drops to 36 this season. They have the league's highest payroll, a historically high payroll. And now they have the task of trading Kevin Durant. Apparently they're willing to work with Kevin Durant's representatives to make sure he goes to a landing spot that he wants to go to. Haize, does that willingness signal to you that the Suns are in for a pivot to try to stay competitive or into a full rebuild?
They should be going into a full rebuild. They should be doing exactly what the Utah Jazz did. Trade Kevin Durant, trade Devin Booker. Maybe at that point, Bradley Beal looks around. He's like, well, heck, I want to go play somewhere that I actually can play basketball. I don't want this thing to be the Wizards. They should be. But I have a feeling that they are going to trade Kevin Durant. They're going to try to convince that those pieces that they get are going to fit better around Devin Booker, and they're going to try to run this thing for another year before they ultimately realize, no, we probably need to trade Devin Booker too.
Matt, if they do want to trade Kevin Durant and stay competitive, like what are some landing spots that would make sense in that scenario where they're not just bringing back, picks and salary filler, where they can actually get competitive players back?
Milwaukee is an option. Like they've got a rotation of guys I think that can help. Denver, I think, is on the table from a number of perspectives, probably one of not Jokic, but any of the next four best players. I think you can probably get maybe multiple of them if you want to rebuild that way.
I hear Brooklyn has Cam Johnson. I don't know if he'd fit in Phoenix.
Good point. Great point. Yeah. I mean, I will tell you, the Nets are not being secretive about this, about like their pursuit of like a superstar this summer. And I don't think they're going to try to get KD back because that would be insane. But like, I am just kind of curious about what kind of happens with them if there's a three-way possibility with the Nets that they could possibly work on. I think for KD, it's going to be interesting to just kind of see like, what does he want out of a city? That's going to be the first question, is like, where does he want to go? Does he want to be in California? Does he want to be back on the East Coast? Where does he want to go? That to me is like the biggest and most interesting question. A really great story, honestly, would be for him to go home to DC. I know the Wizards are terrible. I know. But if they land, say, Cooper Flagg, and then you trade Chris Middleton for KD, and you got a culture setter in Phoenix, along with maybe some young assets, makes a little bit of sense. But I think KD's probably looking to compete for a championship, which means Dallas once again.
So where does Devin Booker play into all of this? He said before that he's not interested in doing a rebuild. And according to this according to this report from Shams, the problems with Mike Budenholzer apparently started with Devin Booker and worked its way down to the rest of the roster. I mean, what is that telling you about his future in Phoenix? Are they going to try to continue to build around him, or do you see a possible Devin Booker exit as a way this all shakes out?
Yeah, I don't think people understand how strong the connection is between Booker and that community. Like Booker wants to be like Mr. Sun. He wants to be the all-time franchise leader in points. He wants to be the all-time franchise. Like he wants the statue out front. That from all indications is where his priority is. I don't think that he is interested in some of these other things. What I will say, we had questions about Booker's ability to be like a winning player. And everyone was like, when he started winning, it was like, ha, that was all stupid. Now you're seeing it. Well, now Chris Paul's gone. And now it looks different. And like, I have questions about that. I think if you're going to look at the culture and what has caused 3 coaches to be fired in 3 seasons, you have to look to the best player. And like, I think Book's been amazing for Phoenix, but on some level, he's going to have to be the guy that sets the right tone and is the leader that they need in the locker room. He's no longer 22. Like Booker's going to have to be that guy for them.
So Haize, according to The Athletic, league sources say there will be no immediate changes to the team's front office. The fate of president of basketball operations James Jones is not yet known, but his contract expires at the end of June, and Ishbia is widely expected to consider new candidates for the role. How did the Suns convince someone to become their next head coach, the 4th straight head coach in 4 seasons? Does that start with hiring a strong voice in the front office to command that search? Haize.
Yeah, I mean, I think having somebody in the front office that has a vision always helps with something like that, especially if you're trying to get a head coach to come in and buy into what you're doing. I mean, coaches like challenges. I mean, there's always going to be a coach that's willing to look at talent, looking at an opportunity and take it. So I don't think they'll have as much of a hard time getting a new head coach in there, but they got to have somebody who has a vision, and they got to have a GM who has a vision that really wants to try to reshape this roster and is going to be aggressive about going out and doing it, because this Sun team needs some serious help in every facet of the game.
All right, coming up on Locked On.
There's only
go ahead, Matt.
There's only 30 jobs. They won't have a hard time finding somebody to take this. Now it's time for them probably to go with an assistant, which means you got to find somebody that Booker likes and believes in. That's like step one. You got to make sure that relationship is good to go from the start.
Coming up on Locked On NBA, the Phoenix Suns, not the only team considering shakeups to their front office, their bench, their entire roster. We'll do a little good call, bad call with some rumors swirling around the Pelicans, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Portland Trailblazers. Later on in the show, we're also going to do NBA awards. It's our opportunity to give some high fives and some handshakes to some things that have happened around the league before we dive in to our postseason coverage. That's all coming up on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Prize Picks. The basketball and hockey playoffs are heating up, which sounds a little dangerous for hockey. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the ice heating up is great. But in either case, there's no better way to turn your sports knowledge into real rewards than with Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, all you do is pick more or less on at least 2 player projections. That's it. And the best part, you can mix and match players from across different sports, basketball, hockey, baseball, whatever you're into, for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Here's what I'm rolling with this week. I've got Luka Doncic for more than 28 points, Jason Tatum more than 8 rebounds, Connor McDavid more than 1 goal, and Austin Matthews for more than 5 shots on goal. You can build a lineup in under 60 seconds, and with promos like Taco Tuesday where they slash projections up to 25%, there's always value to be had. Plus, payouts are fast, they're safe, and they're secure. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by Wayfair. Spring is here, and that means it's home project season. Whether you're refreshing a room or tackling a full renovation, Wayfair is the best-kept secret for all things home improvement. From small updates like stylish cabinet hardware to major upgrades like new vanities, sinks, or outdoor lighting, Wayfair has quality products for every budget. I just upgraded my kitchen with Wayfair, and the selection, it was incredible. Their free and fast shipping made it so easy. No hauling heavy items from the store. It's not me. I'm not going to do that. I'm always going to get somebody else to do it, and Wayfair does a great job. I love that they have top brands like GE and Moen at great prices. Shopping was seamless, and I found exactly what I needed to fit my space and my style. Wayfair makes home improvement easy. Get started now at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. The Suns, not the only team considering some major shakeups to their front office, their bench, their roster. Let's go out to New Orleans and the Locked On Pelicans podcast discussing the latest rumors around general manager David Griffin and head coach Willie Green.
Rumors swirling around David Griffin and Willie Green. Are they going to be fired? It feels like that might be the case. I don't know if that for sure is going to be the case. Look, it does feel like this team just needs to have a massive shakeup in some capacity. The easiest thing to do is a head coach and a front office and just hire new people. And look, I think the process has been okay here with what they've tried to do somewhat. We'll look at some of the misses here in the next segment about why maybe you do need to just fully clean house no matter what. Regardless, this is a results-oriented business, and the results have to matter, and the results have not been good for a variety of reasons. That's not all on Willie Green, not all on David Griffin, not all on the players either, but everyone shares some blame in this. And if that's the case, you still need to get results, and you're not getting them.
All right, let's do a little rapid fire good call, bad call on what we know and what we think we know from around the league, both in terms of teams that are looking to shake things up and teams that are looking to keep things the same into next season. We'll start with those Pelicans. Moving on from David Griffin and Willie Green, Haize, would that be a good call or a bad call for the Pelicans?
Looks like they fired David Griffin about an hour ago, so he is out.
We've got breaking news all over the place.
So there's that. I think it's a good call. The Pelicans do need to change there. And it sucks because I think Willie Green could be a solid NBA coach. But I do think you sometimes you just need to realize that if you're not going to make a complete overhaul of the roster, and even sometimes if you do that, you need to change the guys that are looking at the roster. And so I think it is time. David Griffin reached his point there, and it's time to move on.
Yeah, so they moved on from Griffin, and I'm not surprised. It's just been, I think, disappointing. I think there's been too much indecision, honestly, with that team, where it's, well, we don't want to trade Trey Murphy III and Herb Jones. And, well, we don't want to trade Zion Williamson because he could get healthy. And then, just sticking with the same thing over and over again. And ultimately, I think just Griffin just got ruined by injuries. I think it's hard to blame Griff for how things wound up with the Pelicans. I just think it's hard to kind of really put it on him. At the same time, I think they got to go in a different direction. That team needs a shakeup. There's been no word on Willie Green yet. And I'm going to be really curious to see what happens with him in particular, because if you hire a new GM, he's going to want his own guy. And Willie Green might be a very popular target in Phoenix. He was a longtime assistant coach there. Book knows him. That's a very strong relationship. So Willie Green to the Suns makes a lot of sense if they decide to move on, which I also think that they should, because you don't want a new GM taking over with an old head coach. Somebody that covers Denver, I can tell you that can sometimes go badly.
All right, I'm really scared to say this without refreshing Shams' feed, but there doesn't appear to be major changes in the Philly front office or head coach. I don't know. Tim Bontemps reported that there was not going to be a change to either Daryl Morey or Nick Nurse, but I don't know that we've gotten anything official or if we would. But would it be a good call or bad call, Matt, to stick it out with these two after this disaster of a season that they've had in Philly?
I don't understand keeping Nurse with how clearly Embiid doesn't enjoy playing for him, that there's not a good relationship. You can't have the coach and the star player butting heads. You just can't do it. So you're either going to have to trade Joel Embiid or you're going to have to deal with this Nick Nurse situation eventually. If those guys don't have a good relationship, how are you going to build what you need to with those two? I don't see it happening. So I'm a little surprised by that. Morey, I think, is an interesting one where there's been a lot of talk for years, rumors that Daryl could go do something else with his, there's a number of things I think that Daryl Morey could do in sports, out of sports, etc. And so I'm a little curious to see how much longer. I just think he still is really wants to win that championship. The problem is just I don't know if it's you could talk yourself into the Sixers team, I think, too easily without having to really assess where the team is at and the realities of the situation. This purgatory situation and keeping everybody together doesn't feel like it's healthy for anybody. But hey, maybe next year they can pull a rabbit out of a hat.
Bad call. Move on from everyone. And I don't even dislike Nick Nurse a lot, but I think you got to move on from everything. You got to rip this thing completely out. Daryl Morey had his shot. He took his shot. Everybody knew last offseason was his chance to really try to build something in Philly that could be good, even if Joel Embiid was in or out there. He failed at it. He didn't do good at it. He's been there since 2020, 5 years on the job. I think that's enough sample size. It's time to move on from Daryl Morey. And I think Nick Nurse, not to say that Nick Nurse is necessarily the problem there, but I don't think he's done anything either that's shown he's the guy to coach this team. So I think it's a bad call if you hold on to both of them, either of them. To be honest with you, you need to move on from both.
Does Morey get any credit for basically expressing, hey, I messed up by going after veterans that would be good in the playoffs and not taking care of the roster that needed to get us to the playoffs and be healthy throughout the regular season? He essentially admitted that in his postseason wrap-up press conference. Any credit there for Daryl Morey?
Yeah, credit for the awareness. We appreciate that for you, but then you should understand why we have to fire you. Is the credit that I give there.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think, look, to me, honestly, this is more of an Embiid issue than it is anything else, and that's not necessarily Joel's fault. I think if you give Morey another superstar, he puts him right back into contention. Daryl's proven over and over and over and over and over again that he's a great executive and can figure out how to. I mean, look, he snagged Quentin Grimes. Look at how that guy sees one out. They drafted Jared McCain. Look how good that guy looked. The problem, honestly, isn't the supporting cast. The problem is at the top. you got $50 million in salary that isn't on the floor. It's hard to win that way.
The Portland Trail Blazers extended the contracts of head coach Chauncey Billups and general manager Joe Cronin. Good call, bad call, Matt?
Bad call. Cronin, I think, is fine. I think he's done a good job. I was surprised about Billups. Billups' last 2 seasons, I thought, was the worst coach in the NBA. He got guys to buy in this season, in part because I was told, I heard from league sources that Billups wasn't really given any direction about should they tank, should they develop, should they win. And so they just went out and tried to win as much as they did. So they got worse draft lottery equity, but didn't make the playoffs, showed some potential, but still don't have a direction. I don't know what you accomplished here. I guess the idea is if you can find the guy, Billups can be the guy because of the development that they've shown. I understand it. Ultimately, I probably would have moved on from Chauncey Billups.
I think it's a good call. I think Chauncey, to Matt, I agree with everything Matt said there, but I think that those are reasons why I'm not mad at Chauncey getting an extension here. If you can find the guy in the draft, I do think Chauncey's going to turn into a pretty solid coach. I think the place that you are in right now, also coaching isn't the problem either. So why move on from a head coach that has shown that he maybe won way more. No, not maybe. He won way more than it was expected coming into the season with the roster and a player in Scoot that's still so up and down that you don't even know what Scoot Henderson's going to be on that team. I think Chauncey could be a perfectly good coach in the NBA, a solid coach in the NBA. So as it stands right now, until you improve the roster, until you make sure that you're in a good place with that roster, and Chauncey just isn't getting them over a hump, that's when I'd move on from Chauncey.
We're going to talk NBA awards coming up in the next segment. Good call, bad call, the 65 games limit. It looks like there are only 84 or 85 players eligible for NBA end-of-season awards because of not only the games limit, but guys like Chris Dunn for the Clippers not going to be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year or one of the all-defense teams because he didn't reach the 20 minutes played threshold. Good call, bad call, this 65 games limit and the minutes limit on NBA end-of-season awards, Haize.
I still like the 65 game limit. I think when you go back and look through the history of these awards, there's very few players that have won it without technically getting close to that anyway. The minutes limit is the thing, because you mentioned the perfect player there. Chris Dunn should be in contention for that award. I'm not saying he should win, but he should absolutely be in contention for that award. The minutes limit is the one. You don't have to have both. The minutes limit should be the one that's removed there.
Look, I've been one that's been as frustrated about load management as anybody, but the players have made a good faith effort to try and play more games. I think it's time to reward them by backing off on this and allowing a little bit more discretion. Chris Dunn's a good example. There's other examples I think that are important here. I think you can trust the voters not to make any sort of decision on a player that didn't play enough to really qualify. This was an issue with the league. The league implemented this rule. The players responded by trying to play more games collectively, I think, in pursuit of improving the quality of the games. We're at a point where I think they've made the good faith effort. I think they can remove this rule.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk about the NBA MVP award. Is it going to be closer than many people are expecting? And Draymond Green, he's doing a lot of campaigning for Defensive Player of the Year. Will it matter? Will voters reward that? Or, well, I'll just ask Matt and Haize if they'll reward that. Or are they looking at someone else for Defensive Player of the Year? Plus, Matt and Haize give out a few awards of their own. That's all coming up on this edition of Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs, they are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props from three-pointers, steals, assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Or, if you're just basic, you want to bet the games, right now you can check out play-in game odds. The Warriors are a 7-point favorite over the Grizzlies, and Haize's Bulls, they're holding on to a 1-point lead over the Miami Heat. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. That's FanDuel.com. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. We are going to dive into our play-in previews and playoff series previews all this week. And also Locked On NBA Game Night on this same feed is going to have you covered on the recaps for all of those games. So we want to take the last segment here today to have our big awards talk. Matt and Haize, they're going to be handing out some awards in just a second. But I want to start off with talking about this MVP race. The last odds I saw on FanDuel had the race between SGA and Nikola Jokic at essentially a 90-10 split in favor of SGA, 90% odds of SGA taking this thing. But those are just the odds of a win. That doesn't necessarily speak to the margin, right, Matt? Is this vote going to be tighter than we expect? What would your shock level be if Jokic pulled it out in a very close election, if you will?
Pretty high. Since 1980, when the media took over the vote, the percentage share of possible votes for the winner has increased to about 95% of first place votes. Like, they get where they need to get to. And the awards almost always kind of coalesce around around one player. I think especially, how are you going to give a guy who's got, like, his team underperformed so much his coach got fired? How's that guy going to win MVP? Like, I think that's a tough decision, and I watch Jokic every single night and think he's the best player in the world. It's tough, but I do think that ultimately you're not going to be able to get around the context of the Nuggets season to evaluate this race between them, and I think Shai's going to win pretty easily.
Haize, will SGA win multiple MVPs, or do you think this is going to be one and done for him?
Oh no, Shai's gonna win another MVP over his career. He's been too close even before now. He'll win at least one more. I don't know if he ever wins 3, but he'll win at least one more over his career.
Matt?
Nope, this will be his only one. This is the only one he's ever gonna win.
Any specific reason for that feeling, or just a gut check kind of thing?
Luka Doncic and Wembanyama are gonna win every single year for the duration. Like, it's Luka and Wemby from here on out. That's the problem.
All right, SGA, Jokic, and Giannis, they all feel like locks for first-team All-NBA, with Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell being heavy favorites to join them on that team. But of the second-team level names, LeBron James, Anthony Edwards, Cade Cunningham, someone else, Matt, who has the best case to join that first team?
Steph Curry. Steph leads most of the advanced metrics. Steph had an absolutely incredible season, especially late. I was resistant to the idea, but Curry got better and better and better and better, as the Warriors did. When they added Jimmy Butler, Curry got better. He didn't take a step back. That they don't make the playoffs without him. Well, they haven't made the playoffs yet. They don't make the postseason without him. This team honestly isn't that good, and Curry has held up his end of the bargain and carried them once again. He's top 5 in EPM, which is a great metric that kind of reveals, to me, overall value, along with most of the other advanced metrics. The on-offs are great. To me, it's got to be Steph Curry in that 5th spot. Although I will tell you the most surprising name, Haize, I came very close to having Tyrese Halliburton 5th on my All-NBA ballot. I'm not kidding. Go look at the numbers. The case is there.
I got Anthony Edwards. I think with the big shot, the historic shooting season that he's had, the big shots that he's made over this season, and when you look at the resurgence that the Wolves really had towards the end of that season, a big part of that is because of Anthony Edwards. But I came very close to saying Cade Cunningham, because Cade Cunningham is absolutely he's become a star this season. Cade Cunningham deserves everything coming his way this year, and I love watching this guy play basketball more and more. You look at, and even stepping up on the defensive side of the ball. So many people's made so much about his offense, but he's even stepped up as a defender this year. His rookie year, he was terrible defensively. He's gotten so much better.
All right, let's talk about Draymond Green and the Warriors. They've been campaigning hard for him to win Defensive Player of the Year. It's made him the odds-on favorite, but has he been the Defensive Player of the Year in your mind, Haize?
No. I mean, he's great. He's great defensively. Make no mistake about it. I just think that there have been players that have done it a lot more consistently than him over the course of the season. Draymond Green still has some of those. Just like defensively, he's been good. I don't want to take away from what he's done defensively, so I don't want to talk bad about Dre. But it's just players that I think have made a bigger impact on not as well coached teams either defensively that I would put above Dre.
Yeah, I'd have him like maybe 4th. Both of the top spots for me go to the Thunder. It's Lou Dort and then it's J-Dub. I don't know how you look at this Thunder team and how much they are better than every other defense, and that they are one of the best defenses we've seen of all time when you adjust for era and not decide that it's from that team. Like, the players have to play to have the great defense. You can't just have a good scheme in place. No matter how many components you have, some guys have to be exceptional. For me, it's Lou Dort, then J-Dub, and then actually Rudy Gobert. Once again, I hate that I have to put him on here, but like, opponents don't shoot at the rim. They just don't. They're just like, nope, not even gonna try it. And on some level, Rudy's been good enough, I think, to deserve that. Probably Draymond fourth, and I probably have Evan Mobley fifth.
It's so difficult. There are so many good and different kinds of defensive players of the year. Because you have Evan Mobley, who does such a great job, not only with his rebounding to end possessions, but this is what Danny Cunningham had Justin Rowan on his show. They were talking about Evan Mobley's ability to not just block shots, but block shots and keep possession for his team this season. And you pair that with Dyson Daniels, who's like steal and deflection numbers. They're not great. They're not good. They're not great. They're like off the charts. It's insane. And then you have Draymond Green, who obviously is a big impact player for his team as well. It's a difficult conversation.
There's two major changes I would make to DPOY. One, I would have a perimeter DPOY and a big man DPOY. Two, you legitimately need like a 12-person voting group, not the 100 that do this. You need 12 people whose job it is to evaluate it throughout the season. That is part of their job. They're selected, and they focus in on the defense. You have to do so much work to evaluate these guys. It takes so much work to accurately, I think, evaluate guys. Numbers don't get it done. Watching individual games doesn't get it done. You got to look at the whole resume. They need to make these changes if they want to be serious about DPOY. You
need an awards review team like Secaucus. You need people that with like 10 monitors in front of them constantly reviewing this stuff. I don't disagree with you. I think both of those suggestions are great. All right, let's move from award suggestions to actual awards that Matt and Haize have come up with to hand out to help recap this NBA regular season. Haize, we'll start with you. Who's your first award going to?
First award's going to Ja Morant, and this is called the Petty Roosevelt Award. And he's been the pettiest player in the NBA this year. And what he's done this season with everything, I don't even think I need to explain it. The Petty Roosevelt Player of the Year goes to Ja Morant.
I don't want to follow that. We should shut it down. We should go home. That was amazing. 5 stars, Haize.
I can't wait for the Ja Morant carry a big stick celebration. That's going to be great.
That's got to be the trophy, is it's just a big stick. I'm going to go Galaxy Brain of the Year, and it's Nico Harrison. You traded Luka Doncic, man. I don't care about, like, I've been as critical of Luka on all of the things. I'm not sure that he does the things that you need to win, but God, man, he's a walking triple-double with 30 points. He's one of the 5 best players in the league. Figure it out. You do not trade that guy with what he means to your franchise. An absolutely abhorrent decision. It ruined a fan base potentially. Like, they may never recover from this. You did it without even checking the market. It's the levels of Galaxy Brain here are incredible. So Nico Harrison gets Galaxy Brain of the Year.
All right, Haize, you got another one?
Yep. Irrational Confidence Player of the Year. That goes to Josh Giddey. He's just been so amazing this year. And I know I'm going to give it to one of my Chicago Bulls players, but like when you look at Josh Giddey and what he's done this season, being the engine of the Chicago Bulls offense that won a lot of games here on the back half of the season, he's accounted for when you counter in points generated off assists and points scored since the trade deadline, he's accounted for almost 40% of the Chicago Bulls offense when he's out there on the court. That's the type of impact that he has. Josh Giddey's had a great impact here for the Chicago Bulls this season.
Mine's called the Ben Kingsley and Iron Man 3 You'll Never See Me Coming Award. And it's for the Washington Wizards, who got the big win yesterday on Bub Carrington's game winner. Everyone's like, what are you doing? You're costing yourself lottery odds. The basketball gods will reward them for this. Keyshawn George, Colby Jones, Tristan Vukcevic, the whole Alex Sarr, sure, we'll throw in the number 1 pick. Whoever they add in this year's lottery, hopefully they keep Chris Middleton. I'm telling you guys, the Wizards are going to be not awful next year. I am excited to watch Wizards basketball next season. You'll never see them coming.
All right.
Please clip that. Please just clip that part and let's save it and store it over so we can review this at this time next year.
I love that idea. I only have one award to give out, and it's called the Gary Busey. I'm not sure if you're in on the joke or not, but I'm starting to think you're actually insane. And who do you think I'm giving this award to? Say it with me. 3, 2, 1. Joe Mazzulla.
Oh, of course.
I love him. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Enjoy, there's no action tonight, but enjoy Locked On NBA Game Night when we do have that action. It's on this same feed. They're recapping every single postseason game. Be kind to each other. We'll see you right back here tomorrow for a play-in preview on Locked On NBA.